welcome to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast where Hampton, Chase, and Graham break down all things college football. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
They had to win this game.
There's a problem. This one's tough.
We are back.
That's what my gut's telling me.
I genuinely could not believe it.
You don't live in the great state of Texas.
All right, big boy. Hold my sweet tea.
What are we doing?
That is a stat there, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Now that we've talked about Alabama, Graham, let's briefly talk about the SEC at large. I want you to start off. I want you to give me a team that a lot of the media is hyping up, that a lot of the media is picking to win the SEC championship, compete for a national championship, that you look at in your preseason magazine on your 247, on your own 3, and you're just like, I don't see it. Who is that team for you going into 2025?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, Hampton, but I'm going to go with Texas to start off with, and
Right.
they're my top tier team that I just don't. I'm not buying the hype, and it's not that Texas can't be that team, but I just don't know if I can put all the pieces together to get me to number one in the AP and coaches poll to start the season. The number one team in the country. I think when you look at it, Arch Manning could be a phenomenal quarterback. He could be. But if he was so good, then why was Quinn Ewers the guy last year? When you look at the talent that Texas lost, especially on the outside, going into this year, going into the draft last year and coming to this year, it's a different team. Last year they had, tremendous weapons on the outside that really helped Ewers out. A good offensive line, good running backs, a good defense. But I think that Texas, when you look at it, is having to replace a lot of not only production, but high-end production at that. And I don't know if that benefits Arch Manning, especially when they're going to Columbus, Ohio for game 1 of the season. I don't know if Texas can pull that one off, because the target on their back is, bigger than any road sign that I've ever seen. It is going to be there. And if we know anything about playing in the Horseshoe in Columbus, you can look at Ohio State, Tennessee last year. That place is different when Ohio State knows they're good and knows that something's on the line. And I don't know if Texas can go in there and handle that. So I'm going to go with Texas as my, in a sense, overrated team. I think another team that's not as highly ranked and is not predicted to win the SEC, but a team that's, in a sense, in that top tier, top 25, top half of the SEC, that I could see being not the worst team in the SEC, but could end up missing a bowl game this year in that sense. And I love to say this, and it's going to really make my heart happy when I say it. Tennessee. I think when you look at Tennessee, losing Nico Iamaleava over the offseason, I understand the principle. I understand the money. But Joey Aguilar, who's coming in to replace Nico, has shown that he can throw the football. But last year, Joey Aguilar led the FBS in interceptions. I don't know if that's an upgrade. And I think when you look at SEC games this year, as they always have been, they will be close. Anybody can win on any given week, which means that turnovers are everything. Turnovers are everything. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, Tennessee having to replace a lot on the defensive line. James Pierce, just for example, since he goes to the Falcons, a big time guy for Tennessee that now they're going to have to replace and cause havoc on the defense side of the ball for Tennessee. You can name countless other teams that are going to be worse than Tennessee this year in the SEC, but I could see Tennessee being a big disappointment this year. Not speaking it into existence, just saying that the cards are on the table, and that's what I see.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on both. I think, and what's crazy is last year, if you remember, I wasn't as high on Texas as the consensus, and I really think you would have seen that if their schedule was a little bit more difficult because Texas's defense last year was elite. They were really, really, really good. Their offense, though, was very up and down. I think a lot of that had to do with Quinn Ewers, sorry, Boo, being a little up and down as well. And, now they're replacing Matthew Golden, which you talked about, first-round pick to the Packers, who was their best receiver last year. Isaiah Bond, who was he was hit or miss for them. He was banged up. But that's another guy that you're replacing. I know they got talent. Texas recruits as well as anybody in the country. But as Nick Saban once said, you're not going to crap out another 5-star. And yes, I'm censoring myself. But it just, at some point, the bill comes due. And I'm more worried. Yeah, I'm worried about the skill positions, but I'm more worried about both offensive line and defensive line. They lost, Kelvin Banks on the offensive line. They lost, I think, 2 or 3 other guys. And then on the defensive line, they lost even more guys from last year. And I believe I heard the stat, and I want to give credit to college football nerds on this, but they will not have a defensive lineman playing for them this year that has more than 5 tackles in their career. Again, I'm sure they're talented. I know they've got a kid named Justice Terry, who they dropped a bag last minute to get from Georgia. He's a dude. He probably will play and he'll probably be good, but he's still a freshman. And that's a lot of inexperience that you're counting on to gel quickly. And I just think there's going to be a little bit of dip from that unit. They've still got talent there. They've got Michael Taft at safety. They got Anthony Hill at linebacker. They got Colin Simmons on the edge, who was an elite true freshman. I think they're going to be good. I don't see, like you, Graham, why they're the consensus number 1 at this point. Tennessee, Totally agree with you. I think they lost a lot on that D-line. I think their defense is going to be better. I think their offensive line, I think the people in Knoxville know that their offensive line is going to be an issue. They lost Dylan Sampson, who was a big player for them last year. And, Nico may have been a culture problem, but as far as talent, he's clearly more talented than Joey Aguilar. So I'm with you there. I don't expect a 4-win season from Tennessee. I would be shocked if they got in the playoff. If they did, then Josh Heupel deserves Coach of the Year. I'll just say that right now.
Yeah.
For my team that I think is a little overhyped going into the year, I thought about South Carolina, but I feel like no one's really picking them to win the SEC. I think they're a fringe type of playoff team. And if Lenore Sellers takes the step that we're all anticipating him to make or to take, they're going to be right there because I think he's that special of a football player. And I think they've recruited well enough on defense to kind of fill in along that D line. A lot of the guys they missed, they've lost Kyle Kennard from last year. They lost 2 other guys, lost Emin Worry on the back end, lost their linebacker, but they still got Dylan Stewart, who I think is going to be the best edge in the country this year. So I think they're kind of properly rated. I think some people might be too high on them, but I'm going to be honest with you, Graham. LSU, I know a lot of people are picking LSU to win it all, and I think the talent is there. I think they are very talented on offense. I think Garrett Nussmeier is one of the best quarterbacks coming back to college from last year. I think they improved their receiving core. I think they got a good running back in Caden Durham. But you can tell me all you want about adding talent to your defense. Patrick Payton from Florida State, Jack Pyburn from Florida. You moved Harold Perkins from outside or off-ball linebacker to star. You feel pretty good about your secondary. But I saw last year Lenore Sellers light you up in the 3rd game of the year before he actually became the Lenore Sellers that we are expecting to see this year. I saw Jalen Milroe run the same play twice for 4 touchdowns against you and only threw for 100 yards and put 42 on your head. I saw Marcel Reed come into the game against you, again, a limited passer, and completely tear you up. I think Blake Baker is a good DC. I think they got talent, but I have to see your defense be markedly improved before I am buying you as a national championship contender. That may be unfair, but that's kind of where I'm at with that team. And then offensive line-wise, you lose Will Campbell to the NFL draft, got picked at 4th overall. They lost their other tackle. They lost a couple other guys along that starting line. And I know Brian Kelly, I listened to Todd McShay's podcast, and shameless plug, dude. If y'all are not listening to that podcast, that is one of the best football-related, draft-related podcasts that I listen to on a weekly basis. Go check it out. But Brian Kelly apparently said this is one of the best offensive lines that he's seen or been around. I kind of have a hard time believing that it's going to be better than one that you had last year with a top 5 pick on it and then 2 or 3 other draft picks. They got to be more committed to running the ball down there because they weren't last year. They put way too much on Garrett Nussmeier. And, I'm a big fan of Garrett Nussmeier. But we also got to call a spade, too. In SEC play, especially like the last half of SEC play, he was not very good. He threw a ton of interceptions. He was not very good at handling pressure, threw off his back foot a lot. Even in some of the games they won, like when they played Ole Miss, I love the way that he competes. He's a fiery competitor. He's a tough guy. He didn't play particularly well in that game, but Ole Miss just couldn't convert on 4th down. So I think LSU is a team that I think if everything goes right, they got the talent to compete for a national championship. And I think if it's going to be, if there's a year for them to do it, kind of like Ohio State last year, it's this year with the talent you got coming back. And I'll just say this, and then we can kind of move on. If you don't get it done this year, that seat in Baton Rouge on Brian Kelly, his bottom's going to be getting hot because he's going to be on the hot seat if they don't get it done. Because honestly, to go 9-4 with the talent that they had on that team last year, not a great look. So LSU's my team. Graham had Tennessee and Texas. Let us know in the comments who you think is overrated going into 2025. And Graham, now let's go on the polar opposite end of things. Give me a sleeper team or two that you think is going to overperform relative to expectations.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a team that I think could end up in the college football playoff this year.
Okay.
A team that is considered a powerhouse, a blue blood, but we haven't seen it recently.
I know who you're going to say.
I'm going with Josh Payton. I'm going Nebraska. I think that Nebraska's schedule this year plays really well for them. Mm-hmm. They start on Thursday, I believe, against Cincinnati. It's a neutral site game in Kansas City. But after that, they play 5 home games in a row. One of them includes Michigan, another's Michigan State. But when you look at their schedule, their toughest road game of the entire season, they only have 4 all year. Their toughest road game is going to be at Penn State. That is November 22nd, the second to last week of the year. I think that Nebraska, we've seen not necessarily glimpses, but we know that Dylan Raiola is a highly touted, big-time quarterback. And I think that what Nebraska needs is to get on a roll and get going. And for them, their schedule plays really great to that. Avoiding Ohio State this year, playing Michigan at home, and their true road test will be at Penn State. It's bad.
Oregon?
Do what?
Did they play Oregon?
No, they do not.
Man,
they do not.
Okay.
Is rough whenever one of their toughest road games of the year is at UCLA. If you saw that team last year, I think that speaks volumes. I'm going to go in Nebraska. Not saying they're going to win the Big Ten, but I could see them sneaking into the college football playoff because they could get hot. And when they play Penn State later on in the year, they could be, one loss or no losses at that point. And I think that When you look at the schedule, how it lines up, I'm going to go with a little bit of experience last year, getting through the learning curve of a freshman quarterback. Give me Nebraska. I think they're over. I think they're a sleeper team. They're not overrated. I think they're a sleeper team. I don't think they're in the top 25 either. So I mean, really, a team that's kind of a shot in the dark.
I love that pick. I did not think that was where you were going to go, but I really like that pick because it sounds like everything. I mean, like you said, it couldn't really set up any better for them to make a run. And I heard this on another podcast, but there's something to Matt Rule in year 3 at a program. Look what he did at Baylor in year 3, and look what he did at Temple in year 3. This is his 3rd year at Nebraska. Let's see if that precedent kind of holds true and holds fast this upcoming season. I thought the team that you were going to say was Oklahoma, and I would like to sort of pick Oklahoma, but here's the problem. I don't think they're a sleeper team anymore. There are too many people talking about them. I think they're going to be much improved from last year. Their defense was great last year. I think it's going to be good again, if not better this year. And then you pair that with John Mateer, Jaden Ott, Ben Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator coming over from Washington State. I think they're going to be a really, really good team. But their schedule is absolutely brutal. You talked about Nebraska having a schedule that sets up well. Oklahoma said, "Hold my sweet tea. We'll show you what a brutal schedule looks like." So,
if they won't do it to us, we'll do it to us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Oklahoma is going to be one of those teams that's much improved, but it may not reflect as much in the win-loss column just because of the gauntlet that they have to go through. I think for my team, that's kind of a sleeper team. I really, and I'm not just saying this. I think Baylor's going to have a really good year this year. They got hot down the stretch. I think like the last half of last year, Sawyer Robertson was a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the country. The way that he was playing on the back half of last year, he comes back another year in that system. They've got their leading rusher coming back. They got some weapons out wide. The big question with them is defensively. Their defense was not good last year. But Dave Aranda he said a lot this offseason, some of it quite confusing and confounding. But he said that he's going to be more hands-on with the defense and kind of get that unit straightened out. And if there's probably 5 to 10 guys in college football that I trust when it comes to defensive football, Dave Aranda is near the top of that list. I think he gets that defense playing back to a standard that's kind of more in line with what he's had in the past. And I think if you combine that with the offense, their continued ascension, and they're playing in the Big 12, which is kind of the weaker of the 4 Power 4 conferences, I think Baylor is going to make some noise, and not to spoil it, but I kind of think they may make some noise this Friday night. But I'm not going to spoil that pick yet. So let's move on to some breakout players. Graham, give me 1 or 2 guys that the country doesn't know about yet, that you think are going to burst onto the scene this upcoming fall.
Yeah, I'm only going to give you one because I don't want to be too wrong on my picks, because last year I was brutally awful on my breakout players. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet this year. I'm going with a guy that played high school prep ball in the state of Michigan, plays quarterback position, highly touted 5-star recruit. Going Dante Moore, quarterback of Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going Dante Moore. He was committed to Oregon. I can't remember if he went to Oregon, then transferred to UCLA, then came back, but now is back at Oregon. They're calling him Dylan Gabriel's understudy, is what all the reports are saying. Man, I think a guy that, again, a team that's got a favorable schedule. I think Dante Moore, highly talented, and if we've seen anything from Oregon, and I mean, as long as we've been alive, Oregon's had one of the best offenses in college football, and I think Dante Moore's going to take the reins. Not saying he's going to win the Heisman Trophy, But I think a guy that might sneak his name just into the conversation enough that, hey, Oregon's good and their offense is good. It all starts with Dante Moore. I'm going with Dante Moore, quarterback, University of Oregon.
I like it, Graham. I'm going to give you two. Because one, I don't know his health status and how it's going to affect how much he breaks out. So I'll give you that one first. Keep an eye out in Gainesville for Dallas Wilson. All right, he's a 5-star freshman that came in, went for 195 on 10 catches and 2 touchdowns in their spring game. He's 6'3", like 190 to 200. He is a playmaker that they have not had in Gainesville since, dare I say, like Percy Harvin? I can't remember the last time that Florida had an elite receiver with this type of buzz. I'm not saying they play the same. I'm just saying that type of impact. So Dallas Wilson is a guy that I would keep my eye on, because if Florida is going to do what they want to do for this upcoming year, obviously they're going to have to keep DJ Lagway healthy first and foremost. That's top priority. They're going to have to run the ball, and I think they feel like they got the offensive line to do it and the backs to do it with Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson. But I think to add that extra element, if Dallas Wilson can be an immediate contributor for them, I think Florida, even though their schedule is brutal, I think they're going to be a team that nobody, and I mean nobody, in the SEC is going to want to face this upcoming year. So give me Dallas Wilson, and then give me Austin Simmons at Ole Miss. I am really high on this kid. I know it was only one drive against Georgia. I know it was limited action, but the buzz out of Oxford is really, really high on this kid. And Lane Kiffin, if he knows how to do anything, which he's very good and very well versed at many things when it comes to offensive coaching, developing and getting the best out of your quarterbacks is probably near the top of the list. And I think Austin Simmons is going to be really, really good for that Rebel team, even though I think overall that team's not going to be what they were last year, just because they did lose a lot in terms of talent. So give me Austin Simmons and Dallas Wilson. Let's go, Graham, to the final portion of the show. Let's knock out a few picks for the upcoming weekend, and what a slate we have. This is the best opening weekend slate of college football that I can ever remember. From 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., it's banger after banger after banger. Starts on Thursday night, goes all the way through Monday night. And I can't wait to consume every ounce of it. Graham, let's start with the game on Friday night. Auburn. Big year for the Auburn Tigers. Big year for Hugh Freeze, not only on the field but also on the golf course. Graham, they're traveling to Baylor. They're traveling to Waco. Chase Haney's alma mater. Who do you got winning this game, man?
Man, this is tough. I feel like Auburn's one of the biggest question marks in the entire country. A team that has a lot of talent, especially at receiver, has a young defense when it comes to top-end talent. Bringing in a new quarterback, I'm going to go with Auburn. I think that Auburn's going to edge it out. I've told my brother Chase this, and I guess I believe it's true. If Auburn wins this game, they're going to have a bad rest of the season. So they start off hot, and then the wheels fall off the cart. Or if they lose this game, it really could get them in a sense of going in the right direction going forward. I think Auburn just has a little bit more of those high-end dudes than Baylor does. I think when you got a Singleton receiver, Cam Coleman, I think that Jackson Arnold's going to have not necessarily a field day, but he's got a lot of weapons out there to take advantage of, and it's going to be up to him and Hugh Freeze to get the ball in those guys' hands. So I'm going to go with Auburn. I think they're favored by 3 points, something like that. I got it by a touchdown. I think that's probably what it would be.
I hate to go on the other side from you, but I'm going Baylor. And I think it's going to be a very close game. To me, it's a toss-up. It truly is. If it were at Auburn, I'm 100% picking Auburn. But there's a few things that really concern me if I'm an Auburn fan. Yes, you have talent out wide, but you had talent out wide last year. Your defense was pretty good last year. I think it's going to be good again this year. Your coach, Hugh Freeze, has not inspired much confidence in the quarterback. And what I mean by that is the way that he talks about Jackson Arnold is almost like, I equate it to you have a relationship in junior high and you got a little girlfriend on the side and you're like, yeah, she's okay. But then there's an 11th grader that you really got your eye on. And that's what I feel like the relationship with Hugh Freeze and Jackson Arnold is. That's his junior high girlfriend, where Deuce Knight is the 11th grade, cheerleader that he's, just goo-goo eyes over. Because I don't know if you saw the clip, Graham, but when Cam Newton came to practice and they were retiring his number, he was talking about, we're trying to build what you guys had. And he said, Jackson is, and like, he didn't even really say what Jackson was. And then he said, man, but Deuce is a freak. And then there was that video that came out of him losing his mind over Jackson Arnold, which that is not a big deal. That's coaching to me. But then after that, he's like, when we call something, we expect it to be executed. I haven't heard a ton of just raving reviews about Jackson Arnold coming out of camp there from stuff I've read and stuff I've heard on podcasts. And I think they have done, and this is out of Hugh Freeze's mouth, they've done everything they can to simplify the defense and to make it easier on him at the end of practices so that he gains confidence. To me, that is a red flag. If Kalen DeBoer said that he was doing that for Ty Simpson or for any Alabama quarterback, the way that you earn confidence is by standing and staring at adversity and conquering it, not by you lowering the difficulty and getting an inflated, almost false sense of hope and a false sense of confidence because the level field has been, or the playing field has been leveled. I think going into an environment like that, and Dave Aranda, is going to have some things cooked up that they haven't seen on tape. I think Baylor wins this game in a close one because I don't trust Jackson Arnold and I trust Sawyer Robertson much, much more going into this game. I think if they were playing game 4 or 5, I would probably lean a little bit more toward Auburn. I've got to see it to believe it with Jackson Arnold at this point. So give me Baylor by a field goal. Now, let's go to Saturday, first game of the day, where Lee Corso's final game day will be Columbus, Ohio. Ohio State hosting Texas. Graham, who you got in this one?
Yeah, you always got to raise the red flags whenever the lower-ranked team is favored to win in a game. As of now, Ohio State's favored to win. They got 1.5 points on the spread, I think. That's what it is. But I'm going with Ohio State. I think that a difficult place to play. I think that if you're going to have new quarterbacks, between Arch Manning and Julian Sayin at Ohio State, I think I'd much rather have my first big-time test be at home. I think that Ohio State's going to come out hot. Julian Sayin, big-time prospect again. But I think he's not really getting as much love as Arch Manning is on the other side. I think that Ohio State's going to come out hungry with something to prove. They've got the best player in all of college football,
Great.
Jeremiah Smith. I'm gonna go with Ohio State. I'm thinking a close one, but I'm gonna go about a touchdown again on this one. Ohio State by a touchdown.
I keep it brief. I totally agree with you. I think Ohio State gets this one done with it being at. I feel like if it were in Texas, I'd pick Texas. And I think Ohio State being at home, and I think, like you said, I think they've got the 2 best players in college football, Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs. I think those are the 2 best players going into the year. I think they make a difference. I think Sayin will play well. I think Arch Manning plays well, but I think they probably both make mistakes. But I think Arch going into a more hostile environment, and that being your first big boy start, there's going to be some complications on that front. So give me Ohio State by a touchdown like you, Graham. Now let's go to Tallahassee, Alabama, traveling to play the Florida State Seminoles coming off a 2-10 year. Graham, does Florida State stand a chance in this one, or do you expect the Tide to roll?
I think this is going to be close for a quarter, maybe till halftime. But I think Alabama takes it and runs with it, especially at the end. I think the talent disparity is going to be very prevalent, especially after you've put all your cards on the table. You've run the trick plays. You've talked the junk now that Castellanos has. I think that Alabama wins this one. I'm not going to say in huge margin. Alabama's favored by 14. I could see him winning by 14, 17, even 20 points. I think it's going to be about a 3-score game in Alabama's favor if the offense can get right and we can have some confidence in Ty Simpson. I think that Florida State is at a level, and Mike Norvell's at a level where this game is going to define their entire season. If they win, Norvell's keeping his job. If they keep it close, he still probably will keep his job, or at least doesn't have a lot of pressure going through the rest of the season. If they get blown out, if they lose this game heavily, we could see Gus Malzahn as the interim head coach at Florida State within the first few weeks in Tallahassee. I think that Florida State is receiving a lot of hype, and I guess probably rightfully so. But I can't believe that this one's much of a conversation at all. Give me Alabama by 17-20.
Tend to agree with you. I agree. I think the game is going to play out kind of just like you said. I think it's close early. Alabama kind of feels it out a little bit. And I think they just have too much talent. And it's going to be difficult going into that hostile of an environment game one. I think talent wins out. And I think Alabama has a better coaching staff. And like you said, Castellanos running his mouth, they were already going to be hyped up for game one. But that defense, that just added more fuel to the fire. I think they're going to have something to prove on Saturday. I expect Alabama to win by 21 to 24 points. I kind of see this game playing out a little bit like Alabama-Wisconsin 2015. If anyone remembers that kind of game, where Alabama feels like they're kind of in control the whole time, but it takes the latter end of the second quarter to third quarter for them to really stretch that lead out. So give me Alabama by 21 to 24 in that one. Even though I will say, last note, it will be interesting to see how Alabama plays on the road, because really the past 4 or 5 years Alabama's not played well on the road, and that's both under DeBoer and under Saban. So if it's close, I think that's part of the reason why, and I think that's a little bit concerning, honestly, if the game is a touchdown difference or something like that. Now for the nightcap, and this will be the last game that we pick, even though, even on Sunday, there's Virginia Tech and South Carolina, there's Miami and Notre Dame. That's going to be a fun Sunday night game. And then Monday, TCU and North Carolina play. We get to see the first game in the Bill Belichick era in Chapel Hill. But Clemson, LSU, probably, I don't know. This is the game I'm probably most excited to see, even more than Texas, Ohio State, because I think this game kind of has the most riding on it. And what I mean by that is LSU is 0-3 in openers under Brian Kelly. And man, if they lose this one, that fan base is going to be on another level of livid, and their margin for error for the year gets a lot smaller, where Clemson can kind of afford to lose this one. And they've got a cake schedule the rest of the way in the ACC for the most part. They don't have to play Miami, who's probably going to be the second best team in that league. So I think for LSU, this game is pretty much a must-win. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I would agree for LSU. This is a must-win. You look at their past 2 seasons, started off both with losses. First one, basically a home game against Florida State, but in New Orleans. Last year, opener in Las Vegas against USC. That's nothing compared to what they'll face what they'll face in Clemson. I think that it's Clemson's game to lose. I don't think it's LSU's game to win. I think Clemson has the dogs. Cade Klubnik came on really strong at the end of the year and has put his name in that Heisman conversation. I think when you give time for Clemson to figure you out, that they're going to be heavily prepared. and they're going to be ready to go. I'm going to take Clemson. I think at home just makes a difference. I like Nussmeier. I love the QB battles going on. Probably one of the best of the year between Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. But I'm going to take the home dogs, which are the Clemson Tigers.
Like it, Graham. This game is really interesting to me on many levels. Not only for the storylines for both teams, but I think the matchups themselves. Clemson's D-line is probably going to be the best in the country. With Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, they got another guy on that front that's really disruptive. They've got guys at linebacker. They've got Avian Terrell in the secondary. I think Wade Woodaz is one of their linebackers, and then there's another guy that they have. I want to say his name's Sammy. That may be way off, but they've got a really good defense, and they kind of showed it last year. Now, the concern that I have is they did give up 300 yards rushing to Texas in that playoff game, which, again, is astronomical. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that LSU breaking in a bunch of new starters along that front against an experienced unit like that, I think that's going to not bode well for them for this game. And another thing, I think that might determine the game. But then on the other hand, you look at Clemson last year, who did they beat that was good? They lost to Georgia. They lost to South Carolina. They lost to Texas. I mean, they lost to Louisville. So really all the best teams on their schedule from last year, they lost to. But even with that, that's why I don't think their ceiling may be as high as some people think. I think a lot of people are already putting them, I've seen some people put them at number one in the country. For that reason alone, I got to kind of see it to believe it. But with them being at home with Cade Klubnik, like you mentioned, I thought he really improved in the latter half of last year. I thought he played really good ball. I thought he played well against Texas. I thought he kept fighting. Thought he showed a lot of growth over the year. Their weapons on the outside in Wesco and Williams, I mean, they were young guys last year. Another year under their belt, I think they're going to be really good. Their offensive line is kind of iffy to me. I don't think they're going to be an elite unit by any stretch of the imagination, but I like Klubnik's mobility versus Nussmeier. Nussmeier might be getting running for his life against that Clemson DL, but he's not super athletic and using his legs a lot. I think it's a must-win for LSU. But I think Clemson wins this game. I think being at home and having that experience of a core returning and knowing Dabo knows that this is the year for them. It's all been building for another chance at a championship in this year, in 2025. I think they get it done. And I think LSU has to do a little bit of soul searching after this game, because if they lose, man, it's going to get loud in Baton Rouge. I know they got a lot of talent, but there are a lot of difficult games left on that schedule. So give me Clemson in this one. Graham, I'm going to kick it back to you. Anything else you want to highlight for game one, or not for game one, for week one of the opening season, or anything in general before we get out of here?
After the season Alabama had last year, I was ready for football to end. But there's something about fall weather, going back to school, starting the year off right, that every Saturday is meant for college football. I'm ready. This is one of the weeks of the year we have football starting on Thursday all the way through Monday of good college football action. I'm super excited for week one and for what the rest of the season has in store.
Love it, brother. Well, that is a wrap on the first episode of the Pigskin Cafe for the 2025 football season. We appreciate you guys so much for listening, for subscribing, which, again, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, and hit that notification bell. That way you know whenever we put out a video. We usually release one video a week on Mondays around noon. That's kind of our schedule, and we do a recap of the previous weekend of college football, and we'd love to have you along for the ride. Again, we miss our friend Chase, but we know that he will be back on here at some point during the year. And I did want to say, I didn't even tell Graham about this, but I kind of had it this on my heart to kind of say all off season, and want to put it at the end of the show. We talk about college football on this show all the time, and I know, Chase is a pastor, and we've talked about our faith, some on here. But I really wanted to encourage anyone, if you made it this far in the video and, you kind of have questions about that and you want to know more, about Jesus and how much he loves you and how he died for you, to set you free. If you want to know more about that and have a conversation, feel free to reach out to us in the comments, DM us. We'll be happy to talk with you about that because, we try to give you the best college football takes that we can. But if we're not pointing you toward Christ and how we talk with each other, and if we're not pointing you toward him in general, then we're not doing it right. So I just felt like I need to mention that. So again, if you have any questions and want to talk about that further, feel free to hit us up in the comments or in our DMs. And with that, Graham, that is a wrap on our preview show for the 2025 college football season. And we will be back next week. But until then, chew on